I thought, hey, Nate, don't you want to go and bit of pump up before we start, mate?
Well, look, today I figured that I wasn't going to have a shit show of looking intelligent, so I'd look like go for the size factor.
Oh, fuck it now.
Right. Kia ora koutou, welcome to South Pacific Muscle. Today's guest is someone that Mike is absolutely excited to have on board. I'm terrified, to be honest, but he specialises in mental performance. He specialises in getting the mental edge and helping his clients break through their mental barriers. And his clients range from business people, CEOs, high-performance coaching staff, coaches, athletes, and he's running seminars on these things. So he covers a whole span of things, and I'm really interested to see what we get into. So David Niethe, welcome on board.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
One of the good things about David too, and I love this, I'm a bit of a science geek, so my perfect sort of coach and mentor and things that I look up to is a guy in a lab coat with 20-inch arms. And David has competed in rowing, he's been a rugby player, he's competed in powerlifting, Highland Games, strongman, New Zealand strongest man competing back in the day. So he's got a real mix of being in the trenches and that high-level knowledge.
Hey, well, I thought what would be really kind of interesting, I think we've got 3 old dogs here, eh?
Absolutely.
So maybe an opportunity to do a little bit of reminiscing back to the 90s.
Which is the last time I studied sports psych.
No, mate, you only went there for the chicks, buddy. I thought, if we want to sort of get some key points across to some of the viewers out there. So what I thought I'm quite happy to see where this goes, but, for me, the passion that I have for this, it all started initially because I probably got a little bit of bullied at school. It had a little bit of a low self-esteem. I went to a tough school out at Wesley College, so I was probably one of the only few little white fellas out there. And it was interesting. I don't know about you, Mike, but whatever stimulates your curiosity into the mental side of things, it started with a book that was given to me by the priest out there called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Don't know if you guys have ever heard of that book.
Heard of it, haven't read it.
Okay, it's a book you'll read in about 20 minutes. It's a fantastic story. It was just a metaphor, really, about a seagull who didn't want to be part of the flock, who didn't want to fight over scraps of fish and wanted to go and make something more of his life. And I think that's something that perhaps all 3 of us have got in common, is that we didn't want to be average. You know what I mean? I like the idea of being fucking stand out in the crowd. I wanted to be something fucking different, So this is part of the reason why I got into the bodybuilding, the powerlifting, and all that sort of thing. I mean, initially for me, I started the weightlifting quite late. I probably about 16. I went for a training session at Wesley College, the gym there, with one of the props there. And I remember going in there bench pressing. And then after that, my first gym was the YMCA in Papakura, which was a piece of shit. The equipment there was post-World War II crap, you know what I mean? I remember like the first time I think I attempted a 100K bench, and I failed miserably. And, I had to peel it off. I had no spotter. and it's just amazing how things grow and change over time, eh?
Look, I had a great conversation with a guy last night who used to train with a guy, Joe Foe, back in the day. And Joe Foe was a bit of a legend back our way. And at 73 years old, I saw him have a crack at a 200-kilo bench. But this guy, he was an old-school wrestler and powerlifter. And the guy that trained with him was telling me that back in the day, they would train on stout and peanuts. And I thought...
the information... Back in the 90s, I think we can all agree what we have today is information. You go on YouTube, you can get whatever you want. back in our day, what did we have? I remember Gold's Gym, Simon Street. Fucking hell. And we used to go off because someone would come back with the powerlifting magazine from the US.
Yep.
I mean, that was better than Penthouse magazine. Do you know what I mean? And we'd sit there and we'd watch it and look at all the photos and get all the totals. And, oh, mate, nowadays you've got you can get access on your damn phone. So we didn't really have any idea of programming or of nutrition. I think back then it was like, you know, it was very much harden the fuck up, get in there and train like a motherfucker. And then eat a shitload of food.
Yep.
And I remember we had all the powerlifters over for a barbecue one day. And I remember oh God, there's probably some names that you've probably forgotten about. But we had Willie Towell, Steve Barry, Paddy Raukity Stones, Matt Rossiter. He was my training partner back then. A few other boys, Lon Toho. And I remember...
I remember Lon, he did New Zealand Strongest Man in
96.
Yeah.
1996, mate. Yeah. Because I remember, I think Willie had about 5 kgs of meat on his fucking plate, man. And my wife was looking at going, I've just bought a whole lot of meat, cost us a damn fortune. And the boys are just going, is there anything else? You know, the whole lot just went. But I love for me, Gold's Gym was my favourite place.
I never ever got there. I've got stories that I won't tell on here about Gold's Gym. I never
stories out of that place, mate.
Yeah. Yes. It reminds me, like, back in when we first went down to Dunedin, they had a great gym down there called the Power Dome, and some of the photos behind Mike were plastered all over the wall there. They had pictures. Every second picture was Dorian Yates. The guys that owned it almost idolised him, and they had buckets next to all the leg equipment. So if you spewed up, you could use the bucket. And it was a real dungeon, but it was.
But they wouldn't let you drop the weights, and the weights had to go back in order on the dumbbell rack. They were really pedantic about keeping it tidy, but it was super hardcore.
And it was like that. Gold's Gym was probably a little looser there, mate. But it was one of those places where, unless you benched at least 180 k's, you don't venture in the place. You know what I mean? It was a very. Talk about egos, mate.
Better go on, never been there.
But it was brilliant, mate, because it inspired each other, you know. What was really interesting, you were training against guys you competed against in strongman, but yet they were there chalking up your back, they were slapping you on the back and encourage you through your training sessions. And that's something that I think I've really enjoyed, but I think we've all done a lot of hard work, you know what I mean? The attitude that I would say, what's interesting today, we were never deluded about the time frames and the years of hard work that had to go into it. And I think the kids today, they're in a world where they want it now.
Yep.
You know, they're not prepared to put in the hours of hard work. They're just, I don't know, their perception is like, I want it tomorrow.
Yeah, we're a very like a fast food kind of world when it comes to everything. You know, you can order something online and in 4 days it's going to be here from the US. Back in the day, if you had to order a piece of kit, you were waiting how many months while it came over in a ship, and just everything sort of sped up. And I guess there's that expectation of wanting the quick, easy win. But is that rewarding in itself?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think, perhaps we were just in a different era, mate, and again, for us old dogs, it's about us adjusting because, like I said, we had no idea when it came to nutrition. Nowadays, you can accelerate all this with better quality nutrition, better quality products. I mean, the only thing that I really miss back in those days was remember the old Rip Fuel from Twin Lab? How good was that stuff? Oh, that was the best stuff to train on. You know what I mean?
I can top that. I was at Massey University, and we would buy 120 gram tubs of pure ephedrine hydrochloride and would scoop it before we went and trained. And and I remember running around and I just look back and think, how did I not drop dead? Or, it wasn't that bad. But you're a madman in the gym. But some of those old pre-workouts,
That was good.
Yeah.
If it works, they'll ban it, right?
Yeah, sorry, was that?
If it works, they'll ban it.
Oh, exactly. And I remember when it was, and it was they had to come out with a new formulation, but it just wasn't the same.
No.
It was pretty bloody good stuff.
Went to a really high caffeine mix that, when Super Pump was original, it was good, and then it became Super Dump because it had so much caffeine. As soon as you had it, you just about had to gap it to the toilet because everything ran through you. So. Yeah,
no, it's not pleasant, and here I am. I'm 52. I'm still getting prepped and ready for another comp for the GPC bench push pull in December.
Yep. So
I'm looking forward to hopefully setting a new GPC New Zealand record there. As a 50 to 55-year-old. I still, there's something important, I think, that helps keeps us young is that you still want to be challenging yourself, eh?
Keep moving forward, right?
I totally, Mike. I mean, I think it's interesting the amount of times I get great delight in going to the gym and I have these young boys come and train with me, and I'm actually a really competitive shit. I hate losing. So I'll have these young guys and I have one objective, and that is to fuck them up. Now, I don't know about the language on this channel, guys, but it is what it is with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mate, it gives me a great sense of satisfaction because, a lot of guys look at me and go, I've been mistaken to be 42, which I think is a lovely little compliment. But when they find out I'm 52, that's sort of like far out. So you can. It's like I said, it's a mindset.
It's interesting though. Sorry, Mike. I had the conversation with someone today, and they said, "Oh, look, I'm going to wait till next year because I'm 50 and I'm going to do the Masters." And I went, "Doubt it. I'm doing the Open. I'm always in there for the Open because I'm in that mindset still that." I'm still good enough to keep up and beat most people, but I know that can't go on forever. So, how do you adjust to that? Because I see a lot of people that were athletes in general, but you see it with bodybuilders, with strength athletes, when they lose that sense of self of the person, Nate, the bodybuilder.
The thing that dictates that to a certain sense, mate, is the hierarchy of needs. And what it is for a lot of guys is, apart from the ego, because the whole ego thing is there to protect us and protect that identity. But it's taken away that sense of identity. And you think about this. This is how they control prisoners. They'll take away your name with your reputation and give you a number because it's easier to control people with a number as opposed to a name and an identity and a history. And so for a lot of us, we get trapped in time somewhat. It's very hard to realize. I mean, for me, I'm off to the specialist tomorrow to go look at a hip replacement. Now, let's face it, I don't know about you guys, but I'm in denial about it. I had the pain for a long period of time. And, there's pain and then there's pain. And, I wasn't really listening to the body. And obviously over the years, heavy squatting, whatnot, the hips starting to go. Well, I really struggled with the fact that I couldn't squat heavy. I'm sitting there in the gym and guys are struggling with 180 Ks on their squats. And I'm going, fuck, I used to do that for sets of 30. You know what I mean? God damn it. Fucking, it pisses me off. I'm going on the leg press and these guys doing, I remember that I had some guys I was training with and we had like 12 or 15 plates each side. And the guy said, oh, what are we doing, like sets of 8? I said, no, mate, we're doing sets of 20. Sets of 20. I mean, do you know what I mean? And it's like, fuck, there I am going to the gym and doing fucking extensions.
Yeah. I had a really good learning experience, and as traumatic as it was for me, I'd qualified for the Arnold Classic in 2:15, and then I slipped down some stairs and tore both quads off the patellas. And so I went from being ready to prep for the Arnold to having two legs that didn't work, and I couldn't even wipe my own ass. I had to get someone to wipe my ass for me, and it was really humbling. And I think I learned a lot from that experience, and I got reminded of it. I was going up to visit my mother in the hospital recently, she's back operation, and I thought, we're just so lucky to be able to do what we do, and we don't often think about how much intrinsic reward we get from that. And we've all got a shoulder that doesn't rotate properly, and
exactly.
But we're all down there still lifting, and we can do what we can do. And I just think you've got to count your blessings when it comes to those things, because so many people can't.
Totally, mate. Well, you think about it. I think we're all addictive people. We're all addictive people. I did it as good addictions and bad addictions. And let's face it, guys, our kick is the gym, eh? That feeling, the endorphins going, you feel good about yourself. You know how you feel after you come out of there, your muscles are full of bloody blood, you're feeling good about yourself. That's my high, and that to me is my place of peace, the place of therapy.
There's a lot of talk about mindfulness at the moment. That's just really being in the moment. You've got to be in the moment when you've got that much weight on your back.
That's a biggie,
Mike. In the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's about being consciously engaged. Mindfulness. You know what I mean? What's interesting is I think if you think about the importance of mind-muscle connection, right? And we talk about it. But it's interesting how long it takes people to really understand that. When you're doing lat pull downs, as you get older, I'm fully aware of visualizing those lats, rotating the scapula. I mean, feeling every part of those tissue. But I remember back in the day as a young fellow, it was ripped, shit, and bust, And I think if I could go back in time and have a little bit more of that maturity, that understanding, and gather that information quicker, who knows how much further you possibly could have gone.
I think, Mike, you spoke about exactly the same thing with the lats and that, and you were talking about, how you'd really managed to sort of step up in terms of your mind-muscle connection. And when you guys talk about it, like I can just go, I'm not there yet. I've got reasonably good, muscle control. I can feel most of it. But when people talk about those workouts that they can almost feel every fibre, I'm not there, and I've been trying.
Let's not get carried away, buddy. You saw my lat spread on stage a few weeks ago, and it's still not flash. So, got work to do. Dave, earlier you talked about wanting to be above average, wanting to be outstanding, wanting to stand out in the crowd, and I always felt that I needed to work my way to the middle, because I don't have a lot of athletic ability or talent. Came from a long distance road cycling background, and somehow decided I want to be a bodybuilder. So I was trying to use everything. I was trying to be as intelligent with my training, because I was sort of fighting my genetics, right? And the sports psych kind of came in with that too, and it sort of really cued into me that when I was setting goals in the gym and I was achieving those goals, it transferred to other parts of my life. So I know that we kind of got you on here as a strongman. We could shit about training all day, I'd imagine. But let's try and just sort of pivot around and kind of get some structure around our sports psych chat. So formal education that led you into sports psych, or was there something else going on that kind of led you into it?
Yeah, there wasn't anything formal really, mate. Initially what happened is as I got more and more into this, I was really intrigued as to how I could get more. I somehow realized that I needed to get more out of my mind. So I went and studied and looked into what the Russians were doing, who had obviously they were doing some other bits and pieces as well. But they were utilizing hypnosis a lot. And I found that really intriguing. From there, I backed into a new technology called neuro-linguistic programming, which was developed in the late 70s by two guys called Bander and Grindler, who were engaged to go and model the behaviors of exceptional therapists, athletes, and leaders. So they went and spent many, many years putting this information together. 1978, they published their first papers. And in the 1980s, they decided that they weren't going to go through the traditional process of going to university. They wanted this to be available to mainstream. So one of the guys who was first certified by them was a guy called Dr. Tad James, who was based out of, who was originally based out of California, but moved to Hawaii. He is first generation practitioner. He did his licensing with a guy called Anthony Robbins. Most of us have probably heard of that guy. So Tad James, then that's the man who taught me. So I'm second generation practitioner, and I came across this technology just before 1998, 1997, something like that. So it was relatively new and not mainstream at that point. So I went and got certified with those guys. I've got my master's in it. And from that, I've done a multitude of other courses over the years. So I think it's a combination of, I think at some stage I over 25 years, I think, or actually longer, I've read something like over 800 books, mate. So you can appreciate, nowadays we can get YouTube, and back in those days you had to go to the library and for me also I had to order books from America, so a lot of the stuff wasn't available here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Which was really frustrating and very expensive. On top of that, I think it's probably 25 years I've been in this industry. I've done, I don't know how many tens of thousands of clinical hours. I really get interested when people go, look, you probably never come across this before. I've got, you fucking stumbled across it at all. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So going back to a couple of things that you mentioned, Mike, which was, our motivations for doing that. And again, we can go into different things. There's a thing called the motivational filtering system, all right? So some people are motivated by moving away from something, and some people are motivated by moving towards something. So of the two, the most powerful is moving away from something, because we'll do virtually anything to move away from pain. That's how the prime directive of the subconscious mind works. Then it gets a little bit tougher as we move towards pleasure. But the unfortunate place that most people sit in life is in the middle, where they're comfortable, right? And you'll see this in the gym. Guys will only progress to a certain point, then they get comfortable. Now, in order to go to the next level, for instance, you think about a top amateur bodybuilder, they'll get to a certain level. Then they have to, in order to go to the top end pro level, there is a huge amount of work that has to be done, where things have to be going to another level of quality, specificity, you know what I mean? And the challenge of that, a huge amount of drive, discipline. I mean, I would say bodybuilding. I've never proclaimed to be a bodybuilder, but I'll tell you what, I think it was probably one of the most miserable journeys to go on when you're getting prepped and ready for a competition. And hats off to you, because bodybuilding, the difference between powerlifting and bodybuilding, in essence, is powerlifters go in there and we train for 2 hours, we rest between sets, we go fucking heavy. Then we go home and eat and sleep. You guys are there 24/7, monitoring what you're eating, getting up, making sure you're eating, getting everything in. It's behind the scenes shit that I think is the most important for you guys, isn't it? The posing, the diet, the nutrition, the tanning, you know.
It's a little bit like Chinese water torture, in that you're kind of putting yourself into a painful, dark place and just keeping yourself there.
Yeah.
And anytime you want, you can have a big feed of carbs and sleep in the morning, not do your cardio.
Yeah, absolutely.
You choose to stay there week after week after week.
Absolutely. And what that comes down to, and this is the formula for success. So we're going to throw some little pearls out there for your listeners, okay? So one of the first formulas for success is BICE. So that's belief plus imagination plus conviction plus expectation equals results. So when you have an undoubtable belief in self, when you can visualize and see yourself achieving that, and you have a conviction to the behavior and making sure it's congruent with that vision, and you expect to win on stage, you're going to be very hard to fucking beat.
I really enjoy seeing that in athletes in any sport or any endeavour, you know, to see someone with that. And we spoke about Jamie Johal, you know, like saying, he came out and said, when I finish my career, I want people, when they think of a front lat spread, I will be the name in history they think of. Yeah. And I just went, you know, your belief is just so strong and unwavering. And it's almost like, I think your quote about perception is projection, and the other one I liked was that interview, and you said, give yourself permission to be great. You know?
Well, I think that's so massive today. I think with today, you know, one of the things that I get really pissed off with is I go into a lot of schools and do talks to the kids, and I'll say, listen, one of the things that they are teaching them is the fundamental structures of goal setting. But even then, they get it fucking wrong. So for a lot of viewers out there, we've heard of SMART tested goals, okay? So there's SMART test and then there's mine, and it's more better. S is for specific. Now, the reason why we've got to be specific about what we want is that the subconscious mind is geared up to do just enough. And the reason for that is because there's sensory overload. Right now, we're processing over 3 billion bytes of information. Now, what the conscious processes of the brain is to compress that down, ideally, to around about 136 bytes of information. And from there, at the frontal cortex, at a conscious level, we can only deal with about 7 bytes of information. Right? So how many times the missus given you a list of shit, told you to go down the dairy to pick it up, you come back and you go, fuck, I forgot. The moment you go over 7, you're screwed, right? So in order to cope with all that, the subconscious mind will do just enough. And what happens with a lot of people is that it's very much reflected in their language. They're very ambiguous. So I go, look, I just want to be great. Yeah, well, what the hell does that mean? Or, you know, I want to be the best bodybuilder. What the hell does that mean? I mean, it's all, you know, it's all ambiguous. Those that have very specific in both their vision, their language, have a better probability of achieving what they want. With that, we also talk about being sensory specific. So you think about, Arnold talks about this all the time. He could see himself on that stage. He could feel the muscles. He could see himself. And like he said, he had a picture in his mind where a clay model would just snap on some biceps. He would imagine it and had to grow it in his mind, then go to the gym to achieve it. So there has to be a lot of sensory specific visualization cues. And the other key things, all the senses. So you can taste it, hear it, smell it, feel it, right? Then in that situation, it becomes real to the subconscious mind. The next is M for measurable. And that's pretty much a no-brainer. What are the measurables on the timeline to achieve that? Now, a lot of kids will go, hey, listen, I want to win Mr. Olympia. Now, you know, they're 90 kgs. They've been training for 3 months. I want to be Mr. Olympia in 2 years. Well, mate, it ain't going to happen. So obviously, we've got to be realistic with the timeframes and realistic with those goals. However, so we've got the measurables, and then we've got A, which is accountability. What I love about accountability for you guys, I would say the biggest influence you can have in the gym, I would say to a certain point, is your accountability to a training partner, to a coach, to a partner, someone that you've shared your dreams with, because it helps eliminate procrastination. I mean, let's face it, we've all been in the gym game, right? So what do we see generally in summer? Everyone talks about losing weight. Everyone signs up in fucking January and February. Where the fuck are they in January, in June and July, the middle of winter? They're at home eating biscuits, you know what I mean? So the accountability will set you free. Then it's R for realistic, and realistic with the time frames and the structure. However, I want you to be unrealistic with the vision. Hence the word permission. Give yourself permission, because remember, going back to what you said, Mike, about, you know, the things that motivated you initially. For me personally, there was two gentlemen I had in my life that were a big influence. My granddad and my Uncle John, both served in the war. And they were my heroes, my idols. And as a kid, you hear these wonderful stories. But as they got closer to the time of their passing, mate, I would sit down as an adult and I was told some very fucking horrific shit that they witnessed and what they went through. And so for me, I started establishing some values. Now, for me, one of my most important values is freedom. And that's related to the fact that out of respect to the men and women that gave their lives in the First and Second World War for our freedom, every single person has a responsibility to be the best we can be and all we can be. And I made that promise to my granddad and my uncle that I wasn't going to be just someone who was doing and existing through life. I wanted my life to have some sort of meaning. Do you know what I mean? So that I could have a sense of pride and celebrate what they went through and being the best version of me. So that meant that I had to really start challenging myself. So my track record for school, well, mate, I got asked to fuck off at 15. You know what I mean? I hated school, mate. Now, I'm dyslexic. I've been tested, and I had a lot of problems writing and reading. So I was always in the bottom class. So I had a certain belief system that was structured around feedback from others that, you know, I'm not that bright. Now, I started to buy into that bullshit. When I started on this journey of self-development, I gave myself permission to be brilliant and to be intelligent and to be articulate and to allow myself to be both a brute in the gym, but an intellectual in conversation. And believe me, that was a real fucking challenge, because in writing a lot of my papers, I remember when I first started, I'd be at my desk. I had a dictionary, I had the textbooks, and I had pencil that I would write in, because my wife would type it for me, because fuck, I'm useless on typewriters, right? And I remember one night I'm in here and I had to find a word. Now, for instance, you know, it's like the word psychology. I mean, it's pretty clear it starts with S, doesn't it? When you're dyslexic, right? So I'm trying to find a fucking word. Now, I would have been about 23. And I'm sitting here and I'm trying to write these and trying to find these words. It's not like you go on Google today and you've got it all there. So I couldn't find the fucking word. So I had my little temper tantrum, got up, got my dick, fuck this fucking, I'm a fucking useless fucking dumb fuck. And all this frustration came out. And I remember walking out. And my wife came out the back door going, shit, what the hell's going on? Because he's having a hissy fit in there. And I said to her, look, babe, fuck, I don't know if I can do this. And she just stood there and said, what would you say to one of your clients? a fucking bitch got me. So picked up my dictionary, fucking got back on with it, eh? And I'll tell you something, mate. Behind every good man's probably a better woman, eh? Because
don't you hate with no right? Don't you hate with no right?
She just made you get your ass back in there and stop your bloody victim shit, you know? And I learned a lot from that. And I think what it is today, you know, it just flows. I can regurgitate all this stuff easily. You know what I mean? Because I've gone through it so many times now.
Those lessons like that are hugely powerful, eh? And it makes me think about, you know, a lot of our younger generation and even actually my generation. There are a lot of people that are lost, that are carrying a lot of shit with them, and they have a very low self-esteem, and just end up living and putting themselves in situations that, you know, are just fucking tragic, you know.
Absolutely.
You know
what? I think some people spend more time and energy in reinforcing and creating their victim story.
Yeah.
And the reasons why they can't. And again, this is the thing about neurolinguistics. We talk about the linguistics. So we talk about words, we talk about modal operators, words of necessity and survival, or words of opportunity and creativity. And when you start to change your internal dialogue, you can open up a gateway to a whole different world. You know, the best analogy is this. It's like winter. Some people in winter bitch and moan about the cold. Other people ski.
Exactly.
It's a fucking perception. It's a fucking choice. And so one of the first things, you know, when a client comes and sees me, generally I'll sit down, and one of the first things I'll ask is, do you give me permission to be blunt and honest with you? Because I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass. I'm not a fucking motivator to make you feel good, see you later. And again, it's holding people to account for their self-talk, their language. So, mate, you mentioned something before about a lot of people. What you're talking about is massive, mate. And that is a low self-image. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think it is, without a doubt, one of the most important things for me with working with my athletes. It's probably one of the most influential things, because for me, what I want in my athletes is an undoubtable belief in self. Do you know what I mean? You look at what we've created, you know, when we look at what Israel's just done. Now that guy's a prime example of a guy who has undoubtable belief in self.
And that rubs off on other people, you know, like he's influencing a significant proportion of young people are seeing a guy that believes in himself, came from, you know,
nothing.
Well, you know, you put a guy from anywhere in Africa and throw him into fucking Rotorua back then in the there.
He came out from Nigeria with nothing.
Yeah. And
you know what was so cool? You know, listen to his story, mate. And the most incredible, humble man, down to earth, humble guy. Look, Carlos just got his contract for the UFC just today. Had his fight and won, got his contract. So you had Brad and Israel there helping him.
Awesome,
and I think Israel said something really poignant at the Hellberg Awards. And he said, you know, get over this tall poppy shit. When I win, we all win. And fuck, that was magical. You know, what he's saying is, hey, I'm a beacon of hope. If you just simply follow some of the things that I've done, what I've achieved, anyone can achieve. You know, I go and do a lot of work for schools, right? And I'll say to kids, look, you know who I work with, and I build it up, and I say, listen, here's the secret, guys. In order to be a success, you need these things, right? And if you haven't got it, you can forget it. I'm just going to be blunt and honest now, forget it. So what do you think it is? And so I get kids going, attitude, hard work, blah, blah, blah. And I get all these things, and I go, No, but it's important. Yes, 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 yes. But here's what it is. What we need is 100 trillion cells. What are we all made up of? We've already got it now. You've got everything you need right now to achieve whatever you put your mind to. Do you know what I mean? And if people just sort of realize, holy shit, I've got everything I need right now. You don't need, I mean, it's nice to have it, but you've got cells. You can improve on all these things. Do you know what I mean? And it's like giving yourself permission. I've got everything I need right now to go and pursue whatever I want.
I find it incredible, you know, like I grew up and I idolised bodybuilding, you know, and to me, a pro bodybuilder, I never even considered professional bodybuilding. It was always something that was too far and too hard, and I didn't have the genetics and da-da-da-da-da. And at 45 years old, I went, actually, if I want it, I can go and do it. And it took me 33 years of training to give myself permission to go, actually, stop holding the handbrake on. You know, so, you know, it's amazing, even at things that we're relatively competent at and well, you know, got a good knowledge base and all the rest of it, we still doubt ourselves and hold ourselves back.
And everyone's different. Like I said to you, look, if you're going to be a plumber, I don't want you to be a plumber. I want you to be the plumber. You know, look at a butcher. You can be a butcher, or you can be the mad butcher worth millions. Do you know what I mean? There's a different mindset. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I want. I want people. I think that the reality is most people, unfortunately, are just too damn fucking lazy, and they're lazy because they haven't got a vision that absolutely excites them to the point of obsession.
Who was it? C.T. Fletcher, My Magnificent Obsession.
Yes.
Now that guy, that captures it.
Brilliant.
Oh, he's
I love the guy.
He's kind of like JP in that sense that he is just so fanatical and driven and focused, and it's just like, you know, all the setbacks that happened along the way in his journey, and he just never wavered in his belief and just is just relentless. Yeah. And
that's what people have to have. In order to achieve, the bottom line is you must have a tenacious resolve. And that is a no-quit attitude, because here's the thing. You know what it's like. You do your first bodybuilding show, you come 7th.
6th.
Right? You work your ass off, you come fucking, you don't even get up for a fucking call out. You know, you've worked your ass off. Now, in that moment, you can go, fuck, I worked my ass off and I got nothing. So what's the fucking point? Or you take the feedback from the judges and go, thank you for that, and I need to take responsibility and ownership for this and make fucking improvements.
We had this conversation recently. I'd been to a lot of shows in the North Island, and I did my first show at the South Island Champs, and I didn't realise how good they were. I turned up thinking, I've got this fucking one, I'm taking the class, and my first show, and I came fucking 6th. And I walked off the stage and locked in and trained for fucking 3 years without missing a workout, without, you know, and ended up coming second. And so, you know, I took it really positively. But there's been other times that I've kind of gone, fuck, I should have beaten that guy. And now I look at it and go, you didn't do enough to give the judges no choice. If you didn't do enough and didn't push yourself to that limit, you get what you get. And we've had people sort of saying, oh, you know, I was told I should have won that, and they'd spend all this time on the negative and it's just like, it's done. Move
Here's
on.
The reality.
Reset.
You fucking didn't, man.
Nail it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You didn't fucking win. So shut the fuck up. And remember this: there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. So what's the feedback? Take responsibility. Look at the refinements. And work your ass off to come back next year with a better version. Because what the judges are looking for is an improvement.
Yeah. And the best case in the world of that, to ever emphasise that, was Ronnie coming in at 60 and then coming out to be the best bodybuilder the world's ever seen. you know, and
Absolutely.
there would have been, you know, if you put another 100 athletes in and they got that 16th, they probably went, this is too hard. I'm just going to get a PT at a gym somewhere and, you know.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, this is the old sift and sort process, isn't it?
Mm.
You know, you think about this. I talk about the 95% rule. 95% of bodybuilders want what the other 5% have got. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the guys that you mentioned before that I absolutely love was Dorian Yates. No hype, no bullshit, just hardcore training, absolutely obsessed, was prepared to leave no stone unturned.
Favorite saying.
Right.
Yep.
And when he walked on stage, go back to what we discussed before that formula, he had absolutely no doubt that he was going to win. Now, that persona, that feeling, that's what I talk about with my athletes is creating what I call an alter ego. And that alter ego is you become more than all your parts. So when you visualize yourself, for instance, with Israel, for instance, going through our sessions, he had come off a couple of losses and he'd lost a bit of faith. And we're having a conversation and he mentioned something about the style bender. But what I did notice was this change in his physiology. I thought, fuck, this is really interesting. Let's develop that. And from that, you know, style bender was born. So, you know, you imagine, I know for me, I used a lot of visual cues when I was training and when I was doing strongman. I never competed as David Niethe. I'm a mere mortal. But I would imagine myself as 1,000 kg raging fucking bull. But I was in control of that anger. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, you think about this. How many women could probably deal at 300 Ks? Bugger all. But you put a child under that car, they will rip that damn car every time. There is something in our DNA that we've got to learn to tap into. And that's going to a very special place. And the gatekeeper to that sometimes, especially with bodybuilding and a lot of other sports, is pain. You know, we've got pain receptors that go off, and you think about this, you know, we get to that threshold and the pain receptors are going off, and most people will settle for that. Whereas the exceptional athletes embrace pain and they can push through. And it's that little bit of difference over a long period of time that makes all the difference. One of my affirmations that I talk about with my athletes is pain is the universe telling me it loves me. I want you to fall in love with pain. Pain is not something to be avoided, it's something that's to be embraced. Now, without being stupid, you don't want to end up in freaking hospital. But, you know what I mean? There's chronic pain and then there's acute pain. Acute pain, you go and see a doctor. But we learn to thrive there.
What I noticed, and I noticed it with a female powerlifter she was doing sumo pulls, and she was pausing midway through the lift, and I went, wow. Here's a girl making the lift as difficult as she possibly can. Whereas when I looked around the gym, every other person in the gym was throwing the curls around and half-assing and shortcutting things to make it as easy as possible to get through that set. And someone said to me, they said, thrive on the fact that you make everything as difficult and challenging and put your body through as much stress that most people, you know, won't even get in their life.
You condition yourself for a high level of performance. And, you know, it's interesting. For instance, even with the gym, what happens when what is it like with all the boys and girls when you invite them to come and do legs with you?
Yeah, most of them turn us down.
Yeah, most of them will go, fuck, I've got something on, eh? Yeah. Isn't it interesting? But if it's shoulders and arms and chest, they'll be there. Because you know what it's like when you start on those squats, it's fucking awful. And, you know, again, one of the great philosophers of life, Clint Eastwood, once said, a man's got to know his limitations. And a prime example, let's go with referencing bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is about symmetry. as well as a number of other bits and pieces. But remember the process where Arnold came to America and great chest and arms, but no calves. Now, what did he do? Firstly, he acknowledged the fact that he had a problem. Then he put an action plan together. I think he went and trained with Reg Park in South Africa. And I think the story goes that Arnold's there doing like 300 pounds on the calf race. And Reg Park's doing like 1,000 pounds.
Yep.
And he said, if you want to build calves, you have to, they're used to walking around on 250 pounds every day. You have to go to another level. Do you know what I mean? And what's interesting, someone said to me, you know, I've built a pretty decent set of pins on me over the years. And someone said to me, how do you build your calves? And I said, well, here's the thing. The difference between you and me is that you'll probably do a set of, say, 12 to 20. The difference being is it'll start to hurt at, say, 8, and then you'll finish at 12. I don't start counting the reps till it's hurting. Then I'll do 20. And I think that's the difference that can make a difference. You know what I mean? It's how we deal with that pain. And again, isn't that a metaphor for life? Life's a fucking miserable place, man. Life's fucking challenging.
I saw a really cool thing with a guy, and he was talking about prepping, and he was saying about the things that had happened, and he had some pretty shitty things happen to him. And he said, look, I treat these as events that, you know, they're not great events, and I'm going to feel some pain and some sadness and all these things, but there's a lesson there that I'm going to learn, and I come out the other side a bigger, stronger, better person for it. And I think, you know, it's that the way you choose to look at things that makes the difference, you know?
Mate, what I talk about is reframe everything to serve. Like I said, there's no such thing as failure, there's only learning. What's the learning? Going back to something we were discussing before, and we were talking about the self-image. So let's spend a little bit of time on this because I think it's really important. So how I explain the self-image, confidence is what we show the world. Self-esteem is what we feel and think about inside, right? And that's where most of the damage is done, right? Because a lot of us can walk around pretty confident, but no one knows what's really going on inside. So imagine the self-image like a crystal bowl, crystal clear with crystal clear water in it. Now we have something like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. God help the poor prick trying to keep count, but that's apparently the number. Now, if you don't have what Mike was saying before, that mindfulness, or what I call it the governor, and that's the conscious, that's being conscious of that. And the reason why I call it the governor, it's a bit like a golf cart. They go around 12 kilometers an hour. Now they're battery operated, so when you go up a hill, put your foot down on the accelerator, it will go 12 kilometers an hour. You get to the top and there's a big steep going down, you put your foot down to scream down there, it'll go 12 kilometers an hour because it's controlling the amperage, right? And that's a bit like the conscious mind. And that's why what Mike was talking about, being mindful of it. So of those 60 to 80,000 thoughts, in that crystal bowl, imagine you could see your vision, your goal. And every time that you're not mindful of those thoughts, there's two types. They either contribute or contaminate. So the contaminating thoughts are like a little bit of dye, just a drop of dye, insignificant. But you can imagine 20,000 negative thoughts a day over a period of time. Suddenly you lose sight of your vision. And that's why we talk about mindfulness, and that's about being more self-aware, self-supportive.
So
not to the point, I think it's important that not to the point where you're deluded though.
So is that the strategy you would use to help someone with their self-esteem? You talk about being conscious of your subconscious thoughts, replacing those thoughts with the self-talk aspect.
Yeah, look, absolutely, Mike. One of the key things is mind your language. And I'm not talking about your Tourette's. I'm talking about how you frame things up, you know, and it becomes an unconscious thing. You know, you make a mistake. Oh, you're a fucking idiot. You do this all the time. Now think about that context of language. You're a fucking idiot and you do this all the time. So right now, that's the brain's like a CD. So that's the track that you're constantly running. And so what happens is that people are unconsciously running this track, and then they go, here's my vision. And unfortunately, they're not in alignment. So you have to, once you become aware of that and transform that. So one of the things is I want to interrupt the pattern. So for instance, with most of my athletes say, look, let's just become aware of this. We've got to mind our language and our perceptions, because there's a lot of belief systems that are supportive and a lot of belief systems that are not supportive of it. And a belief system in of itself is something I hope is true. So we have some belief systems that perhaps need to be reframed or interrupted and replaced with something more empowering. So one of the key things that I like to do is, first and foremost with athletes, be clear on your vision. All my athletes have a vision board. Every day they are reminded of their obsession, of what their reason why, what they want to achieve. The next thing is we'll have certain affirmations that we keep programming at a subconscious level, so that it helps to get to the point where we're starting to change that track. So instead of opera music, we're starting to put some heavy metal down. You know what I mean? So for instance, I'll give you, I think stories are the best way to learn. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, right? So I had a young girl called Lydia Coe. You probably know who she is, right? So she came to me, beautiful young girl. She would have been about 9 or 10. And I said to Liz, you know, what's your vision? And we talked about specific goals. We went through that, and I said, so your homework is to bring me a vision of what you want to achieve. So the next time she saw me, she had Golf Digest magazine, had a lady called Annika Sorensen holding the Sojourn Cup or whatever the major cup was. And what Lydia had done is that she had this picture of the trophy that she won, but she had cut off Annika's head and put her own head on top. Now, talk about sensory specific. You can't get better than that, right? Izzy did the same thing, and all the boys used to give him shit in his bedroom because he had this vision board. But it reminds you of your why. Then next to that, we started putting some affirmations. So I like to program people. Now, the power of affirmation, some people like it, some people don't. It's all good. But what I know about affirmations, remember back in the 50s and 60s, for entertainment, everyone would go to the movies. And what they used to do is they used to cut the film and put one slice in there, buy more popcorn. Now, at a conscious level, you can't see it. But at a subconscious level, the mind can retain all that information. And so popcorn sales went up something like 70%, to the point that they felt it was unfair and biased, and so they banned it. So subliminal messages have been banned in advertising. Now, if it's going to work in advertising for the average person, why can't we grab that and actually use it for ourselves? So here's another little story. So I had a professional come and see me. He was struggling. He made about $26,000, and his goal was to play on tour and make a success of it. So he had his affirmations laminated in the shower. One of them was, I give myself permission to be world class. Winning is easy for me. All these different affirmations we had designed for him. My short game's world class, my putting success, but all these things. And he had it laminated in the shower. He had it in his cupboard. He'd open it up and his affirmation. He had it everywhere. That guy now averages around about probably between 1.2 and 1.7 million dollars a year. On his vision board, his ultimate, because he was driving a piece of shit Holden, His ultimate car was an Aston Martin. That man now is sponsored by Aston Martin. And each year, Mike and I sit there and we design next year's new fucking Aston Martin. So here's the thing, and this is the biggie. Any thought that you continuously hold in your mind will soon seek expression through some practical means. You keep holding on to that dream and make sure your behavior is congruent with that and you're tenacious with that. It will soon, your body and mind will find a way to express it to you. Now, there may be different layers where you may ultimately want to be Mr. Olympia. You may not attain that, but you may take out a major title, which is more than what you possibly ever would have had if you hadn't have attained, if you hadn't have committed to this in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're capable of doing is massive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really like the repetition to change your self-talk and some of the unconscious stuff. Because I talked to someone, they said, "Oh, what music do you listen to at the gym?" I said, "I listen to 3 albums, and I've listened to those 3 albums for 3 years. Every day I train, and I don't listen to anything else in the gym." And they said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "Oh, it's fucking gym music, you know." They said, "Oh," I said, "Rob Bailey and the Hustle Standard." And I said, basically, it's like positive affirmations being thrown at you repetitively, and you sort of find yourself in the gym talking to yourself in this driving mentality, and over and over and over. You know?
Nate, you're onto something there, because think about this. What's the thing that fucking stops a lot of people from doing this that we do see in kids? What is it that kids have that adults don't have? They have fucking imagination. When you were a kid and you had a piece of wood, was it a piece of wood or was it a machine gun, it could be anything you want.
Yeah.
And you know what it is, Nate, is that you put this music on, you go into an altered state, which stimulates the neural pathways, releases the different hormones, and you go into this place which is congruent with a state that produces the behavior that is congruent with the vision.
It is actually like an alter ego when you're there, you know.
Absolutely.
Because I go in and I do the really friendly, talkative thing like that, and once I put my headphones on,
exactly,
it's business, you know. And
fucking A.
Well, that's putting routines in place, right? So you know that when the headphones on, and all of a sudden it puts you into that psychological state to go lift to be best in the gym. Exactly. Right? And the music's probably part of that too, right?
Here's the thing, you know, we talk about we behave our way to success. So we're talking about habitual behaviors.
Fake it till you make it.
And that's fucking true, mate. Absolutely right on the button, mate. I talk about this. If you're going to be Mr. Olympia, I need you to start behaving like Mr. Olympia now. So how would he behave? Would he be having, would he be showing up late by 5 minutes? No fucking way. Would he have had his post-workout with him and organised? Absolutely.
And didn't Katya, the bikini girl the other day, really hone this point to us? She said, you know, if I go out, I plan for if something goes wrong and I'm 2 hours late, that I've got my next 2 meals just in case. And you know, she had routines for everything, and everything was. And I thought, like, I'm pretty OCD, and I travel with all my food and all that sort of thing. But she was next level, and that's why she placed at the Olympia.
Correct,
you know,
mate.
just no stolen food.
It's amazing, isn't it? And you think, you know, the other thing, it goes back to that formula when it talks about conviction. I talk about congruent behavior. See, a lot of people go to the gym with great intent, but where's their attention? You know, a lot of guys, mate, they'll go, and I'll tell you what, all the guys will be there pumping away. Then you get an attractive woman coming there. Fuck me, the intensity goes to another level. They're all in competition. But here's the thing. If you were a world-class Mr. Olympia, you couldn't give a fuck who walked in there. And nor do I need to have something like that to stomp up my intensity.
And didn't Bill Kazmaier do it best at World's Strongest Man at the Playboy Mansion, the squat lift with a plexiglass layer with the Playboy bunny sitting on top? And he said, I didn't even look at them. And he squatted 1,000 pounds or whatever it was, won the competition, and it just, they were irrelevant. You know, like
that always interests me when they say, oh, you know, because it's a big game, they come to another level, or, you know, say the All Blacks lifting to another level.
Yeah.
I would have thought that every time you step out with that black jersey on, or every time you step out for a competition, you're already at that next level. There shouldn't be another level.
Agree more, mate. You're absolutely right, mate. You know, this is us as human beings idolising these guys, so we want to make a romantic thing about it. Are you fucking serious? If I'm in black, I have a fucking responsibility to perform at 100%. Nothing less. And that's what these guys expect. We as observers and media, we like to build it up. Oh, they need to step it up to another. Are you fucking serious? It's like if you go there, you go there with clear intent. I don't go there to participate. I go there to conquer. You know, it's something that I pride myself on. And, you know, you could go and talk to the manager at Wolf's Gym and say, hey, listen, what's it like when Dave arrives? Well, I'll tell you traditionally what happens. I arrive, I say hello to everyone, and generally what happens then is the fucking music's changed to my fucking music. And the guy said, I'm okay with it, because he said, look, unless any of you fuckers can train with the same intensity as Niethe, then I'll play your fucking music. But you fuck it, he deserves that, and I have that guy fucking wanting to train with me.
oh God, is Wolf still down there? Is he still around?
No, the Wolf's Gym. This is Nathan, who's the new owner of Wolf's Gym in Henderson.
Oh, okay, yep.
Wolf's Gym, mate. Great gym.
Yeah.
Hey, listen,
Awesome
it's not like the old Coliseum or the old Gold, but it's fucking great guy there. Hey, listen, Wolf's Gym Henderson, guy called Nathan, amazing guy, and the atmosphere he's created there is unbelievable. It's a little bit of old school. It's just, you want to train there, you know, good equipment.
Oh, now I miss things like that. Whenever we talk about that,
I love it. Yeah, I just love, for me, I want to be able to influence the environment around me, because I want to take the intensity. I need to create an environment. And I think that's something that I really pride myself on. If I'm going to go in there and train, I want fuckers to stop and watch.
Louis Simmons and Westside Barbell created that just perfectly. And then they had a stable of champions that pushed each other harder, and they, to the point that, you know, they didn't tolerate anyone that didn't give it, you know.
Oh, mate, you were kicked out. Like I said, you know, it's a bit like old Gold's Gym. If you couldn't handle it, mate, you didn't fucking hang around.
I got a good lesson in Wellington when I was a young fella. I went down and I said to this, I looked over and there was a great big, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a Greek guy, lots of gold chains, but he was fucking huge. Yeah. I said, oh, can you give me a lift off? And he goes, if you can't fucking lift it, it's too heavy. And then he turned and walked off, and I went, that was like a stunned fucking mullet. It was like about an 18-year-old, and I went,
oh, fuck.
You know, and then I looked at those guys, and I was like, you know, they fucking handle their weights like men, and they fucking do it. They don't need to fucking rely on anyone. And I thought, yeah.
And I think that's it. You know, I think there's a blend of that attitude, but I think blended with a little bit more intellect today.
Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting because I do a lot of work with fighters, and you know, people say to me, God, Dave, you must get them really pumped up. And I said, fuck, it's not the WWE, mate. Yeah. We're not putting on a fucking show. I want my fighters really calm.
Mm.
I want them calm and focused. Do you know what I
There's
mean?
one of the things I
Not
did want to
like
ask. One of the things I did want to ask you about is that sort of ideal performance state and arousal control, relaxation, kind of hitting that. So,
yeah. Well,
when you
okay.
work with your athletes, what are your strategies to, I guess, identify where their ideal performance state is and kind of get them
Yeah,
attention there?
mate. Well, basically, what I talk about is the performance window. Okay, so there's the passive, assertive, aggressive continuum, and in that spectrum, in the middle, there's assertive behaviour, and that's where you'll find the zone. When you're passive, you can make you don't have that belief, so to speak. You know, and when you're really aggressive, that's because the ego's kicking in, and let's face it. Sport today, ultimately, I think, in a simplistic sort of way, is about making good decisions. You cannot make good decisions when you're angry. So I don't want my players out there angry. Do you know what I mean? I want them assertive. And I've had rugby players go, "Well, fuck, you got to be angry and aggro in the tackle." And I said, "Well, think about this for a minute. What does an aggro tackle look like, and what does an assertive tackle look like?" I think the difference with an aggro tackle is probably you put the elbow in the guy's face and you're just giving away the penalty. When you tackle with assertiveness, that guy goes to the ground fucking hard, and he'll be certain keeping an eye out for you next time.
Yeah.
The modern game's changed, mate. It's not bring back the Biff.
Interesting, like when you talked about the fighters before, because like there's some great role models in New Zealand. There's a cool pathways, but I went out, caught up with friends, and I had my son with me, 15-year-old, and they were just talking to friends, and they said, "What are you going to do when you leave school?" And I was stunned by his answer. He looked and he just said, "I'm going to be a UFC fighter." And I went, and they said, "Oh, aren't you going to university?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to Auckland so I can train at City Kickboxing, and I'll do something at uni while I'm there." And
hallelujah, hallelujah, mate.
He's stone faced, he's so calm and collected. It just they're almost unfazable, and I think some of the guys that in that game, can teach us some real lessons about mindset and just they're
wasted energy.
level.
Wasted energy too. If you're too hyped up, too nervous, you're wasting too much energy. Calm going in, right?
Yeah, mate. Look, you know what it's like. I mean, I used to bounce back in the day. Now, when you had guys, how long did a fight last when you're all hyped up? About 30 seconds.
Yep.
Right? And you'd be absolutely fucked. I mean, if you're doing 20 minutes, there is no way. So the three states in that performance window, first and foremost, is calm. So what I teach is breathing exercises so that we release the appropriate chemicals. Again, you do not make good decisions when you're dysfunctional. I need you calm. The next phase is, ironically, it's happy. When you go in there and you're happy about playing or you're happy to get on stage, what you'll find, what's interesting with that physiology, it's very hard to access negative self-talk. When the eyes are above the plane of the horizon, it's hard to access negative self-talk and feelings. And think about it. So I'll get the crowd to stand up, put their feet together, put their hands together, look up the ceiling, put a happy smile on your face. Without changing anything, get depressed. You cannot do it. You have to change your physiology. How do you know when someone's in a miserable state? Their physiology. Right? And then the last, which is the most important, if it's necessary, and that is alter ego or Superman state. And that is when we become more than ourselves. Kids do it all the time. When you're playing with your mates, you don't play rugby against your mates. He's claiming to be Zinzan Brook or whoever, you know what I mean? And we play that role. And because of that, we go to another level of performance because we don't have anything at a conscious level that stops us from being that. Do you know what I mean? What it is, it's like setting yourself free from fear. Imagine being fearless in the ring. You have time to think, to move, to counter. And more importantly, when you're fearless, you will commit to the game plan.
Yeah.
The moment you get into a stress response, you'll cover up, your game plan goes out. Before you know it, you're being hammered and you're fucking out of there.
So there's a lot of sort of numbers thrown around, professional tennis players saying, 90% of the game's mental, that sort of thing. Golfers all sort of putting a weighting on the mental game. Now, we spend a lot of time practicing our physical skills and being at the gym lifting. And so what sort of time frame or what a psychological skills training program? Look, I know it'd be individual to every athlete, but what would you have them doing on a kind of daily basis?
Okay, so a couple of key things. First and foremost, to get clarification. When you're about to go into a competitive situation that you've trained for, in the moment that you step on that stage, onto that paddock or onto that octagon, it is 100% mental. And what I mean by that is you do not have the opportunity to go back and practice a little bit more, can you? You can't go back and put a little bit more muscle on the left deltoid. You cannot go back into, right there and then, everything that you have to bring with absolute conviction. And if you haven't got 100% conviction and belief, then whatever the strategy that was deployed for you will probably fall aside and you go back into remote mode of survival. So I truly believe in the moment of competition, it is purely about the mindset because the rest has already been done. Now, as far as training the brain, a couple of key things. First and foremost, you cannot change anything you don't first recognize. I think accountability is a biggie. So firstly, if you have the opportunity to go and sit down with a psychologist, a mental performance coach, I think it is one of the most important investments you will ever make in your life. However, if that's not the case,
can I just jump in there?
Yep.
I think that when you say that, I would suggest that it would be the very vast majority of people that fail to achieve what they initially wanted was due to them holding themselves back because
Correct.
They didn't have control of that. So that mental game, how many people would have been great athletes or great business people or what if
Absolutely.
they hadn't?
Huge.
Yeah.
It's huge, mate. Like I said, I will never be out of business, mate.
Yeah.
I'll never be out of business, mate. Look, I think who couldn't benefit from this? I think it's absolute. I mean, for me, if I had it my way, this should be part of the curriculum for schooling.
Yep.
I might be able to do something about that, Dave. I'm a school teacher.
Well, Mike, I'm telling you, mate, of life classes and about, this sort of stuff should be an important part of the curriculum.
And I was hoping to use this podcast as part of my teaching next year, but with all the swearing and I might not be able to.
Oh, I've just fucked it all up. Sorry, mate. We can just bleep it out.
Yeah.
Right, you're intelligent enough, you can cut and paste, mate. You can use whatever you need to.
And Nate does all the tech, so.
And honestly, Mike, you think about this. What if we told kids the importance of making better choices in life? And what I'm talking about is the choice of the language we choose. So your language becomes a representation. And how many times you hear kids say, look, I can't, I'm not that smart, I'm not good. They sabotage themselves. Now, unfortunately, mate, like I said, it's like a CD. And they're programmed. And they're programmed by themselves. Generally, what's a biggie is their environment. We are constantly comparing kids against kids. And I think sometimes that that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of kids. Some people are very intelligent. Some people learn better than others. For me, being dyslexic, I had troubles learning. But what I was told was I wasn't very bright. And in that moment, when I have a teacher that's saying that and my parents reinforcing that, it becomes a belief. And in that moment, I will have a conviction to reinforcing that belief. We've got to reframe things. And like I said to you, with all your kids, in order for them to be a success in life, what do they need? 100 trillion cells. And reframing learning. People learn in different ways. Now, to a certain point, I think my biggest respect to teachers, I think you guys are doing a pretty damn good job considering the resources you have, and you probably lack a shitload of resources too. But there is something very special. To this day, I can tell you the name, Mr. Brown, Jerome Brown, who is the teacher of my son when he was at St. Francis School. And Mr. Brown had an incredible rapport with the boys, and he taught them that they could do anything, and he used sport as the metaphor. People like that, you've got to appreciate the responsibility that teachers have can be the foundation to set kids up for life.
I think as parents as well, I mean, parents have got a huge responsibility to ensure that talk that's going on in their kids' head, that they're influencing it in a positive way, because so many kids, by the time they're 18, they're broken.
The amount of times where I've had a child in my sessions and it's not the child that I've first started working with, it's the parents. Understanding to a certain point, there is something special. Like I said, the man that triggered something for me was the Reverend Graham Kane at Wesley College when he gave me that book. Now, I will never, ever forget that man, and I will always appreciate that man for having a belief in me. Even when I didn't have a belief in myself. The power that you have, Mike, as a teacher is immense, mate. And you know what? The biggest need of an individual is simply to be affirmed and acknowledged.
Dave, I still remember the teacher that I had in my fourth form PE teacher got me into rowing. He was in the eight that won gold at Lucerne, and he sort of had some belief in me. I actually ended up giving up rowing after my first season with the Māori Cup, and he said, well, he's not going to be a rower because I was a cyclist as well. He's going to be an amazing cyclist. And he said that to my brother. My brother passed it on to me, and it's like, that still sticks with me. That guy's probably the reason I became a PE teacher, probably the reason I kind of went on to sort of do what I could at sport. It's amazing, those little pivotal moments.
Yes, but here's the thing, it's easy for you to be able to deliver that when you truly understand the fact is this. In order for you to be a success, you need 100, you've got everything. So I'm not saying it for the wanting to be nice, I'm saying it with conviction. Young man, you can be whatever you fucking want. I mean, obviously, Mike, you're not going to say fucking want, but you know what I mean? And there's something beautiful in that. Like I said, the most powerful word I use with my kids is the word permission. You guys give yourself permission to be brilliant in whatever you pursue. If you want to be an architect, don't be an architect, be the architect. If you want to be a pig hunter, don't be a pig hunter, be the pig hunter. Do you know what I mean?
I heard a really good quote that was, if a man sweeps streets for a living, he should sweep them as Shakespeare wrote or as Michelangelo painted.
Oh, mate, and that's poetry, mate, and that's what it's all about. We're constantly dumping these expectations on these kids, and I think the appropriate thing is we've got to change that to empowering kids. So I did a little talk, St. Kitts, the little girls' school up here in Auckland. And I did a talk about what I just talked before about the self-image. And I was talking about mind your language, protect yourself at all times. So when you start to understand your language and your representation of the world, and you become aware of that and stop the contaminating sentences and words, you start to protecting that bowl, that self-image. And I had this young Islander girl after the talk. Fuck, man, I get emotional when I talk about this because she would have been about 12. She was a big girl. And afterwards we were outside and she wouldn't let go of me. She was hugging me. And she turned around and said, "Thank you, Dave. I've been bullied all my life. I believe in me now." And here I am, ex-New Zealand strong. I'm walking off to the car, bawling my fucking eyes out.
It's felt made me tear up already.
I mean, that's going,
Damn.
oh my God.
Wow.
And this beautiful Islander girl who was looking at all these beautiful kids around. She was a standout, giant, big girl. And she said, "Oh my fucking God. If every kid on this planet could take on this and reframe that, mate, we could eliminate so much shit. The bullying, kids are cutting themselves, they're committing suicide, they're fucking doing drugs, it's terrible."
Teachers obviously have a lot of responsibility in that regard, a lot of contact with kids, and parents likewise. But I think all of us as athletes could potentially be role models. When you're in the gym, a young fella came up to me the other day, 21 years old, "Hey, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your workout, but could you give me a little bit of advice on training?" And so I stopped my workout. I was sort of 2/3 way through it, because that guy probably took ages. Like, I've seen him training for months, and he probably took him that long to pluck up the courage to come and have a word.
Bloody oath, mate. And you're absolutely right because I've had the same thing, mate. The biggest need of an individual is simply to be affirmed and acknowledged. And so I see these young kids, and I'm watching them, on the leg press with fucking 20 each side, squeezing out 5 fucking reps. And you can easily go down and say, "Hey, I'm watching you, buddy. That's outstanding. You keep pushing." And you can see the look on his face like, wow. Because, for a lot of us, go back to being a kid in the gym. It's a pretty intimidating place, mate. And, Mike, with your reputation and what you've done in bodybuilding, and you, Nate, these guys look up to you guys. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I had a guy the other day, and he'd just started the gym, and he was a big guy, and he was doing something. I said, "Hey, when you're doing that, if you change your motion to this motion," and I just talked him through it, and then he came up to me afterwards and goes, "Fuck, thanks so much for that." And every time I see him in the gym, he goes, "Hey, bro," and I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And you see them like, you just see them lift up a bit, and like
totally. And this is what I'm all about, mate. You think about the model tradition we've had of leadership is the guy at the top tells everyone how to suck eggs. Yeah. Mate, we've got to flip it. It's about empowering people around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you go out there and purposely release endorphins, you release the right chemicals in the brain, it makes you feel good.
I think it takes till about our age to start talking and thinking about paying it forward. We had a lot of people help us along the way, so it's pretty easy at our age. It'd be nice to kind of, get that a little bit younger, because it's really like some of the young fellas, some of the sort of 30-year-old bodybuilders, the ones that people are looking up to, right? So, ideally if they could take a bit of that on board too and realise how much other people look up to them, how positive work one way or the other can really make a difference.
I will say that there are some real leaders that have learnt their lessons a lot quicker than we have. I look back and think, the maturity of some of these top athletes in that, and their openness about, and willingness to give and share, whereas in the past, it was hang on to it's my competitive advantage. It's amazing, and they're lifting people
Yeah, mate. Look,
Mm.
I know for me, and look, I've been doing this, 25 years now.
Mm. Mm.
And I have my own foundation. So I have a number of athletes that I look after free of charge because I know they can't afford me. I'm not bloody cheap, but I truly believe in giving something back. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's really important that, it's ironically, there's a man called Jim Rohn. Now, he was an amazing motivational speaker, one of my idols. And Jim talked about 3 steps to greatness. And he said, step 1, set goals. Number 2, number 1, set goals. 2, oh God, what was it? 3, have a financial plan. 2, educate yourself. Always educate, always learning. So number 1, set goals. 2, educate yourself. And 3, have a financial plan. That financial plan was on the 70-30 rule, which was 70% of your income learn to live off, 10% invest, 10% reduce debt, and 10% tithe. And it's from the Bible. I'm not a religious man, but I truly believe in some of those methodologies, and that is to give something back. Now, I don't necessarily tithe money. What I tithe is my expertise and my time freely to certain schools, organisations, because I think it's absolutely important that we give something back to the community. And I think we've all got something to offer. We've all got something to offer. Shit, it could be just getting a spade out and planting a few trees around the school because it helps the environment. We all have something to offer. And I think if we all went out there with that sort of attitude, we could actually really make a difference in this world, man.
After lockdown, I really changed the way I viewed the world. And I thought this has been the biggest impetus to change the way we operate.
Yeah.
And now, X amount of months down the track, I think, how many people actually remember that at that point, how we were and how thankful we thought we'd be about what we've got today. Yeah. But we've got short memories. And I try to hang on to that and think, I saw, when I was locked in a house for a month, I saw a better way of doing things that was a lot of more of the higher level reward by by giving, and I think it would be nice if something really positive came from that, but hard to know. I think.
Well, I know for me, one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed was that I had my kids home, and there's something beautiful about sitting around the table, eating, no phones, and having conversation.
I got adult not as young as mine, Dave.
No, you end up wearing most of it, eh? Yeah. No, I've got a 22-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son, so it was very, very nice to enjoy that. Do you know what I mean? But again, it's going back. Look, some of the other things, Mike. I think it's about going back to some of those core values, identifying what they are, and ensuring that you live your life congruent with those values. And I think a lot of people, when they start to compromise that, they're not aware of it at a conscious level, but they're just not happy in life. One of the things that I loved and that I'm proud of is, I worked my ass off to get educated to where I am today, but I've also designed my life. Now, for the last 25 years, guys, I've done a 4-day week. In fact, I only work 16 hours a week. I'm not interested in making a shitload of money and being filthy rich, but the one thing that I promised myself was I wanted time for myself, my wife, my family. I've had time, and that's something that you can't get back, and that was very important for me. I wanted freedom. But I've been that guy who used to get excited about overtime. And I look back on that and going, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Mate. Oh, God.
When you get to 80 years old, and imagine how much you would pay to get some of that time back. And you can't ever earn enough to get that time back. And I think, that's just an amazing lesson to go. You don't want to pop out the other side and your kids are growing up and you don't really know them because you were so busy doing what you're doing. And I think, look, from the outside, it looks, when I look at your world, you know, you live on your terms and you do something you're passionate about, which you can't ask for anymore. Absolutely.
And I think what's most important, mate, is when people get to know me, they see that I'm congruent. You know how you get people that talk one lot of language and behave a different one? I fucking hate that. What you get is what you get. Look, I may have a bit of a colourful language vocabulary, but I know that I'm a very caring person. I want nothing but the best for people. I get a buzz out of helping people. And that's my gig, man. You know, empowering people around me and helping people achieve their goals. For me, that's my satisfaction. That's what gets me really excited about life. You know, and the other little things though, you know, I start the day by having breakfast with my wife. We sit down and we talk about our dreams, our aspirations. You know what I mean? It's just, it's.
You'll never grow old. You will never grow old living that lifestyle. And,
Mate,
you know.
I mean, I had a guy yesterday. I had a guy say, you know, I asked him, how old do you think I am? He said, 42. I mean, I've got 10 years, bro. I can't believe it. And it's all mindset, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, like, I think if you can take a step back and look and say, am I happy with that life that I'm living? And look, I step back and go, fuck, pretty cool ride. I get to do what I do. I go to the gym. I enjoy my time at the gym. I've got time with my friends, my kids. You know, I work enough that, you know, never get it, but money's low level for me. You know, you need it here and there. But
one thing I do want is I want to be remembered. I want people talking about me when I'm gone, going, fuck, he was a good bastard, that guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be remembered, man.
And there are people like that I think of that have influenced me in some ways, and Matt Ross is a great example.
Yeah.
You know,
man,
just like someone that I think, you know, lived on his terms and leaves a legacy. Fuck is just the most amazing stories that I've got, and that everyone's got about, you know, always an anecdote, always a, you know, always a fact. If it was something about strength training, and you everything, and you know, just larger than life. And you know, you still think, you know, fuck, what a legacy he had. You know, he was.
Well, you think about this, mate. As I said, the basic need of an individual is to be affirmed and acknowledged. Now, I remember the 96 New Zealand Strongest Man, the last event was the anvil carry.
The pitch maker.
And it was, mate. And all I remember was Matt walked past me and he said, you can win this. And I fucking nailed it. And what was ironic, the last guy to go after me was Lon.
Yep.
And Lon and I catch up for lunch and catch up now. And he goes, of all the fuckers that I had to go against, second to last was fucking you, mate. Because I knew what you were like. And he said, he got to my mark and he tipped forward. He knew, I've done it. He said, I had nothing. I don't know how the fuck you managed to do that, Niethe. You know, but it was helping each other become the best version of ourselves. And Matt didn't fucking mince words. Matt, you'd say, look, I had a PB. You go, oh yeah, but you could put another 5Ks on that. Fucking hell, Matt, you're a pain in the ass. But he was always wanting more for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there are a lot of people that owe people like Matt and others in all aspects of life that have taken them under their wing for whatever reason. You know, Matt never got anything out of it other than, you know, sharing what he loved. And, you know, how many champions has he made? How many people has he inspired to go on to higher honours? You know, like the Boy Scout to the World's Strongest Man. You know, like I remember back, I had a group of powerlifters that when I was a 15-year-old school kid and walked into the gym for the first day, somehow ended up training with guys that were going to the worlds at powerlifting within a week. And I learned how to squat, bench, and deadlift. And why they would have any interest in showing me that, you know, other than that they were good bastards, you know?
Yeah,
so,
and I think, you know, there's good bastards in everyone, mate. You know, even some of these challenging kids, I like working with them because if you seek the good in them, you'll find it. You know, I had a little interesting, I go down to Te Puke. We go and stay down in Pukahina. And I remember going to the local gym there, mate. Now, you can appreciate, it was pretty much all black power boys.
Yep.
And so I go into this gym. Doesn't really help being a bald-headed white boy, you know. And I head on to the gym. There's only one bench. And all the boys are there benching. I'm going, oh, fuck, here we go. Because I'm not going on those fucking things out the side with it. You know, I want a bench, you know. And so I ended up catching up and talking to these guys. And here I am with fucking patches. They're intimidating as fuck. Well, at the end of that night, I had them all around me learning how to bench press better. And it was like, in that moment, all the racist bullshit fucking disappeared, and we were brothers in iron. And it was fucking magical, mate.
It's a fucking great equalizer, eh? You know, like, you know, you can be anywhere in the world. You don't have to speak the same language. You know, you don't have to have anything in common, but you love fucking lifting. And, yeah.
And it, well, it obviously helps when you're benching 180 plus, but...
Yeah, I don't know that.
But do you know what I mean? And you get their respect, and it was just awesome, mate. You know, I think for me, it's if we can just, like I said, you know, we all have that ability within us old guys now, to go and inspire these young kids, even more so to a certain point with you, Mike, in that role. And like I said, it just, those magical words with, you know, I believe you can. And when it's said with real conviction and intention of heart, it can resonate in that cellular makeup of that individual for the rest of their life. That is something pretty fucking special, man. You know what I mean? You know, you think about this, when you're long gone, having someone talk about you going, you know, I remember Mike, who was my teacher, in the gym, and that guy said something to me that, like you said with that young kid, it could be something that is so fucking powerful at that time.
I think I'm going to have to like really focus on actually doing that. Otherwise, the only stories they're going to tell about the stupid shit what I did when I was in the gym. so
yeah.
Push those aside and come up
or out of the gym for that matter.
We've had plenty of time. We've done some dumbass shit, mate. Do you know what I mean?
I own it all. Oh, hey, look, guys, we're going to have to close it up. What I'm going to do, Dave, is I'm going to pull together something, just some promo stuff to run at the start of it, because I just wanted to ignore what we had, because that conversation was probably the best conversation I've had in a long time. So
mate, I enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah,
we scripted some stuff out, but kind of just threw that out because it was awesome. You're worried about it too, no?
It becomes more organic, eh?
Yeah. Really appreciate it, and thank you, Dave. And I've got a lot of stuff that's bouncing around in my cranium at the moment that I'm going to go away and do some reflecting on. Probably a few more poignant messages than either of you two realise. I think you spotted it. One, Michael went, you know, about you know, my accountabilities and things like that, and sometimes, you know, although I have a lot of those expectations of others and give that advice freely, sometimes I don't look in the mirror very well, you know, and so, you know, I think there's some amazing stuff in there tonight, and the people are really going to enjoy
I hope you got something out of it, guys, and I really appreciate giving the opportunity.
Awesome.
We appreciate having you on, Dave. I've really, really enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure if if the punters can listen through all our ramblings, then they'll get some real gems out of that.
Yeah, let's hope so, guys.
Okay.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, everyone, and we will touch base with you in another day or two. Stay safe out there. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.